Once upon a time, in a quiet village surrounded by rolling hills and fertile farmlands, there lived a woman named Nneka. She was known throughout the village for her gentle spirit and kind heart. Nneka had been married for 10 long years to her husband, Chike, a humble and hardworking man. Together, they had built a beautiful home filled with love and laughter, but there was one thing missing: the sound of a child's footsteps, the sweet laughter of a baby filling the air. For 10 years, Nneka and Chike had tried to have a child, but every year passed without the cry of a newborn in their home. In their village, children were seen as blessings from God, a sign of favor and legacy. As the years went by, the whispers began. People started to question why Nneka hadn't yet born a child. Her friends, once full of support, started distancing themselves, and even family members began to look at her with pity. In her heart, Nneka felt the weight of the unspoken words. Was she barren? Had God forgotten her? The villagers weren't unkind, but their well-meaning questions and unsolicited advice wore her down. Each time she went to the market, she would hear women chatting about childbirth and motherhood, and it would sting her heart like a thorn. Though Nneka tried to remain strong, the pain of being childless weighed heavily on her spirit. Yet, despite all this, Chike never once blamed her. He would hold her hand in the evenings as they sat under the stars and say, "God's time is the best, Nneka. We will wait for his plan." Though Chike's words comforted her, Nneka still felt the ache of wanting to hold a child of her own. Every night, after her prayers, she would cry silently, asking God why he had not blessed her with the gift of motherhood. But even through her tears, she continued to trust in God's timing. Her faith was unwavering, and she believed deep in her heart that one day, God would answer her prayers. One year, on the 10th anniversary of their marriage, Nneka decided to take a more significant step in her faith. There was a small church in the neighboring village, known for its pastor who had a reputation for deep prayers and miracles. People traveled from far and wide to attend his services, seeking healing and divine intervention. Nneka had heard stories of barren women who had conceived after visiting the church, and though she had been praying all these years, she felt an urging to go there and pour her heart out before God. So, with Chike's support, she traveled to the church one Sunday morning. The pastor, a humble and soft-spoken man, welcomed her warmly. Nneka explained her situation, tears welling up in her eyes as she spoke of her longing for a child. The pastor listened carefully, then gently took her hands in his and said, "My daughter, God has not forgotten you. He hears every cry, sees every tear, and knows the desires of your heart. Do not lose hope." He prayed over Nneka, a deep and powerful prayer that filled her with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. He anointed her with oil and told her to continue trusting in God's love and timing, for God had a plan for her that was greater than anything she could imagine. Nneka returned home with renewed faith. She and Chike continued their prayers, but this time, there was a quiet hope within her that wasn't there before. Months passed, and though nothing seemed different, Nneka held on to the words of the pastor. Then one evening, something strange happened. Nneka began to feel unusually tired, more so than she ever had before. She dismissed it at first, thinking it was due to the hard work she had been doing in the fields. But the fatigue persisted. Soon, she started feeling dizzy and nauseous, her appetite changing in peculiar ways. Days turned into weeks, and the symptoms didn't go away. One afternoon, as Nneka was preparing dinner, a thought crossed her mind, a thought she had dared not entertain for many years. Could it be? Could she be pregnant? She quickly pushed the idea aside, afraid to hope, afraid to be disappointed again. But the signs were undeniable. Her body was changing, and it wasn't long before even Chike noticed. One morning, Chike urged her to visit the village midwife, just to be sure. Nneka was hesitant at first, but eventually, she agreed. With her heart pounding, she went to see the midwife, a wise old woman who had delivered nearly every baby in the village. After a thorough examination, the midwife smiled gently at Nneka and said, "My dear, you are indeed with child." Nneka's heart soared. She could hardly believe the words. After 10 long years of waiting, praying, and hoping, God had answered her prayers. She rushed home to tell Chike, and when he heard the news, tears filled his eyes. They embraced tightly, overwhelmed with joy and gratitude. The news spread through the village like wildfire. Those who had once pitied Nneka now marveled at the goodness of God. Her friends, who had distanced themselves, came to congratulate her, and even strangers from nearby villages came to offer their blessings. As Nneka's pregnancy progressed, she went to the midwife for regular checkups. One day, the midwife, with a knowing smile, said to her, "Nneka, I believe there's more than one baby growing inside you. Your womb is full. Blessed indeed." Nneka was surprised but overjoyed at the thought. Could it be that after all these years of waiting, God was giving her not just one child, but more? The months went by, and soon the day came for Nneka to give birth. She labored through the night, surrounded by the midwife and the women of the village, while Chike waited anxiously outside, praying fervently. As the first cries of a newborn filled the air, Nneka's heart burst with love. But the midwife wasn't finished. Soon, another baby was born, and then, to everyone's astonishment, a third. Nneka had given birth to triplets, 2 boys and a girl. The midwife held the 3 babies in her arms, tears of joy streaming down her face as she exclaimed, "God is truly great." Chike, upon hearing the news, rushed into the room and fell to his knees beside Nneka, overcome with emotion. "God has blessed us beyond measure," he whispered, holding his wife's hand as they gazed at their 3 beautiful children. The triplets were the talk of the village. No one could remember the last time a woman had given birth to triplets, and everyone agreed that it was a sign of God's immense love and favor upon Nneka and Chike. The children were named Chimdima, God is good, Chikwudi, God exists, and Namdi, my father lives, and they grew up surrounded by love, both from their parents and the entire village. As the years passed, Nneka and Chike never forgot the hardships they had endured before their children were born. But those years of waiting and suffering only deepened their faith and made them more grateful for the blessings they had received. They taught their children the power of prayer, the importance of kindness, and the beauty of trusting in God's plan, even when it seemed impossible. Nneka's story became an inspiration to many in the village and beyond. Women who had once lost hope found strength in her testimony, and people from far and wide came to hear the story of how God's grace and love had blessed Nneka with the family she had longed for. The triplets grew up healthy and strong, and their laughter filled the house in ways that Nneka had once only dreamed of.
Please like and subscribe for more interesting stories. We will catch you in the next one.